What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So I had a really important decision to make. I been lucky for the last year to have done a lot of traveling and making content for Sony. And with that, I was allowed to use their equipment. I make up a little list, send it to them, and then they would send me back. And I got to use a lot of great equipment. The A99 II, excellent camera, the A7R II, always wanted to use an RX R1 II, A7S II. So I've got to play around with a lot of the Sony equipment, and myself had an A7R II concurrently. So was pretty much embedded into the Sony family and all that. And all in all, I was able to shoot some incredible things with it. And was also very happy with it. But sometimes, I don't know, it's weird. I've been doing this for 8 years, and certain cameras just feel right. It's kind of like anything else in life. You get used to it. So a little backstory on that. I started shooting with a T2i with a macro lens, and then moved up to the 5D Mark II. And then I switched over to the D3S Nikon. Sorry, the first two were Canons. Then I switched over to the Nikon and had a D3S, D700 for a second body. And then when the D800 came out, I got that and upgraded to the D810. Very happy. I feel like personally some of my best photography work was with my Nikon cameras. And then fast forward, the Sony had just pretty much not announced, but rumors were they were coming out with a pretty spectacular camera, which ended up being the A7R II. So funny thing about that, when I went to purchase A7R II, I got to meet the local Sony rep for Houston. I always forget to turn my phone off, so let me do that now. And that's my beautiful wife. Anyway, so in meeting him, we got to know each other, and we've turned into fabulous friends. In fact, I'm going to do an interview with him in a later video. But long story short, he was the one that introduced my time-lapse work to one of the big guys up at Sony, Phil, who's over training and everything for all of Sony North America. And he was always looking for content for their TVs. And one thing led to another, and that's how I was able to get this equipment. They paid for trips for me to go on, and you can see my work in Best Buy, wherever Sony sells their 4K HDR TVs. So long story short, it's now. And there are 3 cameras that I have been thinking about getting because, I don't know, it's just that time. And it's the A7R III, the Nikon D850, and the 5DSR. Now, when I was shooting this huge construction job last summer, was it last summer or summer before last? Can't remember, time flies when you're having fun. I had the 5DSR and used it mainly for portrait work. So it was kind of like my backup camera to my A7R II because I was doing a big time-lapse job. So I use that for time lapses. It's phenomenal for time lapses. And used the 5DSR as a backup. Well, a couple times I had to because it got so hot in downtown Houston, the A7R II locked up. And that's when I kind of fell in love with the 5DSR. So that's why it's in the mix with cameras. And I just love the amount and the clarity of pixels. The 50 megapixel sensor in that thing is amazing. Downfall is it doesn't have the dynamic range that an A7R II, 3, or a D810, D850 have, but you can make up for that. That's something that you can overcome if you just know how to shoot the camera correctly. So that's why I had those 3. So it took a lot of thought. Like I sat here, talked with some friends, talked with my wife, and it's kind of important to me because it's what I'm going to be using. It's a tool. It's kind of like a musician in their instrument. Our cameras are the same thing. And just went over the pluses and the minuses. Like, I'm still kind of hung up on the A7R II locking up when it got extremely hot, and I'm going to be in different types of weather conditions. But I love love. The thing that I love most about the A7R2 and the Sony's is that you can plug an external power source in. So if I'm doing a long day to night time lapse, I really don't have to worry about the battery going bad or anything like that. So that's why I was looking at the A7R3. There wasn't a bump up in pixels, but again, it's the same amount of pixels. I can still shoot 8K and down-res all my time lapses to 4K and still have those 8K pictures, so when eventually, 10 years down the line, that everything's in 8K, I still have relevant content. So that was important. And that's why those three were on the list, because of their pixels. You can do time lapses with any camera, but because my workflow has always been with the A7R2, I didn't want to go back in pixels. So that was important for me. Look, if you shoot 8K and then down-res it to 4K, it's going to look better than if it was just shot at 4K. So that's kind of like what I like, especially with my time-lapse sequences and everything like that. So that's why the A7R3 was bad but good. And it's good because I can externally power it, so that was on my mind. I also like being able to see the stripes on the screen, like all the video tools you can use for pictures too, and it really helps with exposing, especially when it's a very high contrasty situation, and it's easier to see it and play around with it. The D850 I've been thinking about a lot is because they put in a lot of really cool tools. Especially for time-lapse photographers. The cool little things like if it knows you're doing a time-lapse, it'll make a separate folder for it. So all those individual time-lapse pictures will be together in that folder. That's really awesome for me. I like the sensor. I don't think there's much difference between the dynamic range between the R2 and the 850. The 810 was stellar. Even DP Review and Ming Thang on his blog wrote that it was almost medium format. Well, I think both the R3 and the D850 are just as good or better. So that's not a big decision. What I do like about the D850 also is it has a rugged body. A very nice rugged body that should be able to stand extreme cold and extreme heat, and that's what I'm kind of worried about with the R3. But I think what made me come down to the final decision is just this one issue that I've had so much with mirrorless cameras. And it's that their sensor is right at the front. So when you take off the cover, that sensor is right there. And keeping that thing clean is almost a nightmare sometimes. Especially when you've got to, even if you're very careful about switching in between lenses, and doing a lot of traveling and a lot of places, you have to change out the lenses constantly. And some situations you don't really have the opportunity to be very careful with it. And if you're not, it is so easy to get dust, anything on the sensor. Now, if you're shooting at like 1.4 or 2.8, it's okay, you're not really going to see the dust, but a lot of my time lapses are at f16, 14, 12, things like that, and if there's anything on that sensor, it is so obvious when you pull it off and you're looking at those pictures. And that happened more times than not, more times than I was really comfortable with. And that was upsetting because there were a lot of really great time lapses that I got. Luckily, I was able to recover most of them by going in and individually in the pictures and getting rid of spots. But there's some times when that's just nearly impossible. If clouds are moving, it's frustrating. And that was, to me, the most frustrating thing about mirrorless cameras, because you have to be very careful with those sensors and not have any dust on them. For me, for what I shoot, because I shoot it such wide. So when it all came down to it, I made a final decision. It's been a camera that's very hard to find since it came out. It was been on back order. It's probably their biggest, greatest selling camera ever. And luckily today I happened to go into my favorite camera store, and guess what was sitting there? So my final decision that I made was, make sure I'm holding it up right, the D850. So this is really cool because I get to learn come back to Nikon, and learn how to use this camera differently. And what I'm going to do is make tutorials on this channel, not only on using the D850 and getting to know the D850, but also using it doing portraits and mainly time lapses. And I'll have a lot of time lapse opportunities coming in the next few months. Like next month, the wife and I are actually going to Germany. Her brother's getting married, but on off time, I probably won't sleep. Yeah, I doubt I'll sleep. So I'll probably be doing time lapse, especially at night and things like that. Should be a beautiful place to do it. And I'm going to bring you guys along and show you how I do it, what I do, how I think about it, and all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to make this video because for me, it's a big decision. This, like I said, like a musician, this is my instrument. This is what I use to make money, and it's not an easy decision to make. And something to remember too, we live in a great, phenomenal, amazing time for photography. If I'd gotten an A7R III, if I got a 5DSR, if I got a D810, if I got an A7R II, I could still make pretty much identical pictures. So it's so amazing right now because there's so many great sensors out there. There's so many great cameras out there. Heck, in a bind the other day, I had to shoot my GH5, take photos for wedding pictures, and it did phenomenally well. We live in a revolutionary time, an amazing time for sensors. So just be cognizant of that. Brands really sometimes come down to what you're fucking comfortable with. That's the bottom line. And I think that's the first time I dropped an F-bomb in one of the videos. So hopefully it's the last time. But anyway, so just think about that. We live in a great time. It's kind of like TV. There's so many great TV shows on right now. Like, have you ever seen so many great television shows with Netflix, after Netflix? And camera companies are being just as competitive. They're putting out some amazing things. So just from a guy that makes money doing this, and it's very important that my images look really stellar, you can get stellar images on most cameras these days. The most important thing is the lens. It's not even the sensor. It's the lenses. If you put really good lenses, and they all make good lenses now. It's not like Canon used to have this huge lead and then Nikon started making some great freaking lenses. No, Sony with the G Master, they all make good lenses. So again, it all comes down to personal preference. So I am excited. I haven't even opened this bad boy up. I'm about to go charge the batteries and take some pictures and bring you guys along. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you soon.